Good morning. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I'm Don Irvine once again, coming to you a little bit earlier than normal on Monday, but still out here. Okay, so I hope you had a good weekend as things are starting to hopefully get back to normal or in and around at least the DMV for the most part. Remember last week we had uh, the huge protest slash riot on Capitol Hill on Wednesday to protest the certification of the Electoral College votes, and it got to be a very nasty affair, unfortunately, and one that will definitely leaves a stain, if not just a bad taste in the mouth of many, many Americans for what happened there. Who's to blame? President Trump, Capitol Hill police. There have been, unfortunately, there were some deaths. Capitol policemen died as a result of the incident there, plus another one apparently committed suicide, in addition to the young woman who was shot and killed by a Capitol Hill police officer. These are things that should not be happening in our country in this regard. This is a shameful behavior on the part of those that were participating that actually breached the police line to do this, including a West Virginia state legislator who has now resigned for filming and taking part in that. There are arrests are being made. The guy who stole the podium for Speaker Pelosi, yeah, he's been arrested. I mean, it is just crazy how the Trump administration, in terms of the Trump years, are winding down and finishing off. Normally, this is a pretty quiet period during electoral politics in terms of as we get to a transition of power between one president to another, but it has been anything but. All right, so that leads me to what's going on Capitol Hill, particularly with Nancy Pelosi. So David Cicilline from Rhode Island has drafted articles of impeachment. Nancy Pelosi planning to go ahead and with that. She has been trying to cow Vice President Mike Pence into invoking the 25th Amendment to remove President Trump from office. But that is just that's a no-go, folks. I mean, the 25th Amendment is really built on mental incapacity and not this. I mean, you can say a lot of things about President Trump, I think, but I don't think that the mental incapacity is the problem here. Plus, he would then have a right to respond. We're talking 9 days. Okay, 9 days will be inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. This is not going to happen. I mean, the Senate, can meet. Could meet around the 19th. The day before, but they take action the day before. It doesn't seem very plausible, right? That's also the thing for the House is that they could go ahead and bull rush through another articles of impeachment, vote to impeach him, and then send it on to the Senate. But then the Senate's got to deal with that whole just mess. And I don't think even with a 50-50 Senate and Kamala Harris, being able to. Well, actually, she won't be able to, right? If they can't do it before it, because it won't be the vice president at that point in time. I should take that back. So the vice president of the United States actually would still be Mike Pence, right? So at that point in time, that's not going to happen either. So this isn't making a lot of sense. But there's a lot of effort on the part of liberals and Democrats. What they want to do is not just impeach President Trump for a second time, but they want to convict him. That is the real key here, because he didn't get convicted the last time around. And if he gets convicted, then they could bar him from, he would be barred from holding office again. For this, and that's what they would really want to do, is they want to take him out of the 2024 equation. Though I would say, and I know this doesn't make a lot of Trump supporters happy, is that I think that there's been a lot of damage done by President Trump in the last month, in particular, with not conceding the election on December 14th like he had said he would do, pushing for all this stuff, trying to browbeat and cajole and do whatever, pressure the Georgia Secretary of State to find votes to overturn the election in Georgia, which was not going to happen. All the myriad number of court cases that have failed because they didn't have any evidence, and a bunch of lousy lawyers for the most part to file those cases. So there's a lot of distraction going on here, particularly in the last month. If you can even say the last 2 months, but really the last month or thereabouts. And so he wasn't doing himself any favors. A chance to leave on a high note, that's gone. The reputation, a legacy of some of the policies of his tax cuts, reviving the economy during the first 3+ years of his administration, those types of things. Getting people back to work. Low unemployment. All of the there are a lot of good things. I mean, trade war with China. good. There's some good and bad with that. I mean, some people benefit, some people get hurt by it, because that's what happens in a trade war and when you start throwing tariffs up. But by and large, the country was moving in a pretty good direction. And, as of January, February of 2020, President Trump was in great shape to win re-election. And then COVID, then the coronavirus from China came in, and that he was mercilessly pounded on by the media, by the liberals, by the Democrats, while Joe Biden pretty much hid away during the campaign. And even though that President Trump, never got enough credit for Operation Warp Speed, we have a vaccine in record time. The states are a little bit slow to roll out the vaccinations, but I'm thinking now that it's a combination of the states not really being prepared to handle the rollout, plus the fact that federal guidelines on terms of who should get it and when they should get it were probably a little bit too tight, and that basically roll through your procedures and say, okay, here's the group that gets it: the first responders, the essential workers, the frontline people, the nurses, the doctors, the firemen, the police, all those kind of people. But if you're at a location, whether it's a hospital or a grocery store or a drugstore or whatever that has the vaccine, and then you've got 30 doses, and you're about to close up shop for the day, your pharmacy, and you still have a couple of doses left, don't throw them away. Find anybody in the store that'll take them. Give them away. Do something. You don't want to throw them away. That's valuable stuff, right, folks? I mean, shoot, I'd go ahead and do it. And I'm not a vaccine type of guy. I haven't gotten a flu shot in my life, as far as I can recall, right? But I will get this. If I get a chance to get this, if somebody said I can get one tomorrow, I'll be in line. I'll be right there to get one tomorrow. I'm not going to wait 2 hours to get one, but I'll wait. But I'll get one. So, that's out there, folks. I mean, you have to think about that and what that means, going forward. So we have a lot of, we got a lot of fighting, a lot of crazy stuff going on here in the DMV. It affects a lot of things politically. But, we know for sure in 9 days, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris will take over. The Senate will then be firmly in Democrat hands. They'll have the tie-breaking vote. But it doesn't mean that the Biden agenda will get all the way through, because you got to look at Joe Manchin and say, will he support everything the Democrats do, or will he vote to block a few things that he doesn't agree with that don't suit the interests of West Virginia? He still has that to think about, and his future and his career in West Virginia. So he will be, Joe Manchin could easily be a kingmaker in this going forward, being, the person who is not 100% liberal, and therefore could potentially swing to the GOP side for some issues. Now, we also have on the resignation front, right? We have Lisa Murkowski, big surprise, I guess, who said that President Trump should resign. And she's now been joined by Senator Pat Toomey and also by former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. Now, this is not going to happen. I mean, President Trump's not going to attend the inauguration. Vice President Pence plans on doing so. It is a scaled down inauguration anyway because of COVID and security issues and things like that. So it's not going to be anything like any inauguration we've seen probably in most of our lifetimes. So it's not going to be as big a deal as before. I don't even know. I haven't even looked into it. I can't imagine that they really have much in the way of inaugural balls and things like that, which were big money makers for a lot of political people to do that. Also a chance to show off and hobnob. In the COVID era, you can't do this kind of stuff. I mean, you're going to be dancing. You'd have to have half the number of people in a ballroom or something like that. I just don't think it works. So I didn't see anything about inaugural balls and all those kinds of things, but I can only imagine that most, if not all of those things are just not taking place. And if there is one if there's a main one for President Biden, and Vice President Harris, it will be a very kind of small, localized affair, something that is just done for them, with a handful of people present, for social distancing concerns. So, yes, Republicans, there are a lot of Republicans turning on each other. There's a lot of, there's a lot of people calling Republicans who supported the objections last week that they're seditious and all of these things. We have media saying that this was a coup. No, it wasn't a coup last week. There was a lot of craziness and insanity, but it wasn't a coup. Um, but we need to move forward. I'm sorry, it's like, I know this doesn't satisfy everybody, but something has got to give here, and we have to kind of go back and say, who are we as a country? What is our republic, going to look like going forward? We really gave ourselves a big black eye with that, and all of those who broke the law last Wednesday, they deserve to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. You know, does not everything that they did probably will result in jail time necessarily for every single individual, but some deserve jail time. A lot will probably get off with fines and some probation, but they should, this just shows the problem with a movement as big as President Trump's, I think, is that he drew in such a wide swath of people that we had not seen before, that you also have elements that were less than desirable that also could go off and act, kind of crazy and do things, whether or not it's the QAnon or the Proud Boys or whoever you want to throw into that bucket. But that was definitely a problem. And President Trump really didn't do a lot to control that group. He kind of just danced right on the edge by trying to only slightly condemning them at times, without really condemning them, and then still saying we love them and they're great, they're patriots. He vacillated. He just vacillated a lot with those groups, and that gave them the energy and the manners to go forward. Now, President Trump, as a result of things that he said, and done, and whatnot, and the blame now, and I don't think that what he did was necessarily deserved, being banned permanently from Twitter. He's now lost his megaphone. He tried to take over the POTUS account, and they stopped him from doing that as well. So he is now silent because he doesn't have a social media presence. Facebook has suspended him through through at least the inauguration. I don't know if they actually updated that and decided to follow Twitter. But then Parler, which he could have gone to, where a lot of conservatives have fled over the summer, they have now been shut down because, Amazon Web Services, which was hosting them, providing their internet connection, in essence, their server, basically cut them off for help, for not controlling what was going on in their forums, and for the incitement of violence and things like that. Now, look, I don't miss Parler. I joined Parler. I looked around for a while and said, meh, it does, I would prefer Twitter as much as I think social media can be a cesspool of, that Twitter was still better for conversation and to get points across. Parler was just an echo chamber that it was just, I don't think it really amounted to much. So they plan to, find some other host server, but I don't know when that'll happen. Stripe has online payment system is not going to be processing any Trump-related, anybody who's selling Trump merchandise, I guess a Trump campaign and those kind of things, they are now being, their Stripe accounts are being stripped and suspended. So a lot of problems, there as a result of all of these. I'm not saying it's all fair. I'm just saying that is what it is. And then there's a report that Cumulus Media has now told all their talk show hosts to tone down their language regarding the election and stolen election and all those kinds of things, which is kind of unprecedented for the owner of a company to go back and tell their hosts. The hosts make their living by just sparking conversation. And sometimes people say some pretty outrageous things. I don't think that I won't accuse most talk show hosts of going out there and telling people to go and riot or whatnot. But it just sounds like everybody has gone a little bit too far over the other side with all of this. All right. And then the last thing is just the Trump brand. PGA is going to strip the Bedminster Country Club of its tournament in 2022. So they're going to have, there's less there. That'll be another question that I want to talk with Brian about on Wednesday, is about the Trump brand and what is it going forward after all of this. I think he was going to be okay even losing the election, but after some of this stuff that he will be forever associated with and blamed, rightly or wrongly so, that how do you escape that in the brand when your business is your name and your brand is your name. So anyway, something to think about. All right, as always, stay safe, stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. We do. Despite all the stuff that's been going on, we do, most definitely. And as always, God bless America. I will see you on Wednesday.